There are truths that are never spoken aloud, hidden beneath layers of romance, veiled in sweet metaphors, disguised as noble ideals. Truths no one dares look at directly, because to do so would unravel everything they believe about love, connection, and forever. And yet, it is precisely within those uncomfortable truths that freedom lives. Not the kind that soothes, but the kind that strikes, that tears at the soul and opens the eyes. And there is one truth in particular that many men are not prepared to hear. A woman does not love the way you love. She never has. Not out of malice, not out of deceit, but because her emotional architecture, her internal logic, responds to a system that is not yours. While you build castles in the sky, dreaming of eternity, she evaluates, she selects, she adapts. While you love from a deep yearning for fusion, she acts according to something older, more biological, more pragmatic. But you didn't know. No one told you. Since childhood, you were taught that one day she would appear, the right one. You were fed stories where love heals everything, where sacrifice is always rewarded, where if you give your all, you'll receive the same in return. You were told that persistence is romantic, that crying for love is noble, that surrendering completely is the right thing to do. But they didn't tell you the most important part, that the kind of love you expect, the one that gives itself unconditionally, eternally, is not the kind that often governs how many women choose and love. Schopenhauer saw it with brutal clarity. He wrote without decoration, without the softening of poets or the sweetness of novelists. What the world calls romantic love is, for the most part, a mirage, a social construction that dulls the man, distracts him from his essence, domesticates him with the promise of a soulmate that may be nothing more than a biological mechanism disguised as emotional destiny. He didn't say it to wound, but to awaken. He warned, the female instinct, though not born from cruelty, is programmed to seek protection, stability, continuity. It often operates without the woman even being aware of it, guided by the cold laws of natural selection. And if a man doesn't understand this, if he keeps operating under the illusion that both genders love the same way, he will destroy himself, not because of her, but because he keeps expecting from her something she was never built to provide. You didn't know. That's why you gave everything. Your focus, your vital energy, your time, your vulnerability, believing that what you offered would be returned with the same depth. And when it wasn't, when she grew cold, distant, vanished without explanation, the pain was unbearable. Not just because you lost her, but because the fantasy that had been holding you together suddenly collapsed. And it is precisely there, in the heart of that void, that this path begins. Because if you're reading this, if you've felt that silent betrayal, if you've tasted the bitterness of giving everything and receiving only silence, then maybe you're ready. Ready to stop idealizing, ready to start seeing. Not with resentment, but with clarity. When the illusion finally breaks, what remains isn't just pain, it's confusion. Because you don't understand what happened. You thought you had done everything right. You were present, loyal, devoted. You gave her all you had without reservation. And yet, she left, or changed, or replaced you. No clear explanation. And there, in that space, between what you believed and what actually happened, is where the real fracture begins. It wasn't her departure that shattered you. It was the realization that she had never been in the same story you were writing. Schopenhauer explained it without filters. To him, the love a man idealizes is a mirage, one that diverts him from his true purpose, keeping him entangled in a narrative that was never truly his. From his perspective, what you saw as eternal love was, from the other side, an efficient biological strategy, a mechanism designed to select, evaluate, and discard when it no longer serves its function. You thought the two of you were building something, a shared vision, a lasting bond. But she, often without even realizing it, was responding to something else entirely, her survival impulse. While you dreamed of soul-deep union, she was assessing your capacity to offer emotional, economic, and genetic stability, not out of malice, not out of superficiality, but because of a hardwired biological code. And while that truth may sting, it doesn't make her less valuable. It makes her fundamentally different. The problem isn't her. The problem is your ignorance of that structural difference. While you view love as a sacred, unchanging promise, she may see it as a temporary alignment. While you believe your full-hearted devotion guarantees permanence, her instinct tells her she must continuously evaluate whether you remain the optimal choice, not from the romantic heart, but from the cold, primal logic of survival. And when you no longer are, when her unconscious senses that someone else offers greater status, security, strength, or resources, her desire fades. No drama, no warning, no explanation. It simply vanishes. What you felt was a sacred bond becomes to her a completed cycle. And you, still clinging to the idea that love is eternal, are left in ruins, asking, "Where did I go wrong?" But you didn't go wrong. You simply entered the wrong game using rules you didn't know existed. You stepped onto an emotional battlefield thinking you were in a spiritual partnership, when in reality, you were unknowingly participating in natural selection. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. Deeply human. Idealistic to the point of blindness. And this is the moment where many men break beyond repair. They become bitter, resentful, hardened. They think the only option is to hate women or withdraw from emotional connection entirely. But Schopenhauer didn't propose that. He never asked you to stop loving. He asked you to start seeing, to stop idealizing, to understand that what you call love might not carry the same meaning from the other side. And once you see that, truly see it, there's no going back. The veil falls, and with it, the entire narrative that kept you on your knees. When everything collapses, when she leaves, whether physically or emotionally, you don't know how to respond. You're unprepared, because you didn't enter this bond out of convenience. You entered through hope, through the deep conviction that she was the one. Not a chapter, not a phase, not a possibility, but the final destination. That's why, when she pulls away or when someone else enters her orbit, your entire world disintegrates. You feel the chill of the unexplainable. And worst of all, you blame yourself. So you try harder. You multiply the messages, the gestures, the desperate acts of affection. You fight to save what you had, but there's nothing left to save, because what you felt was a spiritual connection was, from her perspective, and from Schopenhauer's cold lens, a functional bond, one that either fulfilled its purpose or was quietly replaced by something more advantageous. And here comes the most devastating part. She doesn't hate you. She may not even know why she's gone cold. She's simply disconnected, not out of cruelty, not by design, but because her instinct told her to. Because something in her no longer perceived in you the same promise of safety or progress. Even without conscious awareness, her nature functions like radar, constantly scanning. And when it detects someone with greater status, resources, symbolic strength, or future potential, her attraction shifts. You don't understand how this is possible, how someone can say she loves you one day and behave like a stranger the next. But that's because you still see love as a straight line, something that, once born, can only grow. You don't realize that for her, that line is dynamic, flexible, dictated by factors you can't control and often can't even perceive. So in your desperation, you crawl, you cry, you beg. You become a shadow of who you were, trying to revive something that no longer exists. You humiliate yourself because you believe your love can reignite her interest. But the more you lower yourself, the more you vanish, the less she sees you. Because she doesn't respond to your pain, she responds to your position. And when that position becomes needy, submissive, desperate, it no longer holds the value her instinct is drawn to. And in that quiet, invisible process, you lose more than a woman. You lose your center. Your dignity evaporates. Your direction collapses. Because everything had been anchored in her. Your purpose, your motivation, your emotional identity. And when she's gone, you no longer know who you are without that story. That's when the real fall begins. Not with the breakup, but with the realization that you abandoned yourself inside that relationship. And the most bitter part? You can't even hate her. Because deep down, you know, she didn't write the false narrative. You did. You projected it, you dreamed it. And now, pain teaches you with ruthless clarity. The price of idealizing without understanding is losing yourself in a story that was never real. That moment of collapse isn't just heartbreak. It's an existential implosion, because it's not only her that leaves, your entire sense of purpose, which you had tied to her presence, vanishes with her. The future you envisioned crumbles. The illusion you nurtured through every silent sacrifice, every small surrender of self, evaporates. And what's left? Emptiness and ruins. An identity shattered not by betrayal, but by your choice to pour your soul into something that only ever needed function, by expecting permanence in a system designed by biology to be adaptive, temporary, utilitarian. Schopenhauer didn't say this to break you. He said it to wake you. Because as long as you believe your devotion guarantees eternal love, you'll be destroyed by a logic that was never yours. Many men never recover. They remain trapped in a shattered narrative, repeating the cycle, chasing the same illusion, with different names and different faces. Over and over, hoping that this time it's different, but nothing changes. Because it's not the woman who must change, it's your perception that must shatter, your understanding, your mental framework, the story you believed was happening. And for that, you must face a brutal truth. You allowed it, not as guilt, but as key. You were the one who gave everything without requiring real reciprocity. You were the one who shifted your direction to fit into hers. You were the one who stopped building your own kingdom to invest in hers. You believed that love meant pain, that persistence was noble, that giving up was cowardice. But the real cowardice is continuing to feed an illusion that's killing your soul. When you repeat that phrase, "I allowed it," you're not condemning yourself, you're reclaiming power. Because if you were the one who betrayed yourself, then you can also be the one who saves yourself. You can stop idealizing. You can stop chasing validation from someone who never saw you as an equal. You can start looking at yourself with the same intensity you once looked at her. Not to harden, not to hate, but to awaken. Because deep down, you don't want revenge. You don't want punishment. What you truly want is clarity. And that clarity begins not when you analyze her silence, but when you examine your own. Not when you chase her shadow, but when you ask, why did I give so much without boundaries? Because what hurts isn't just her absence. It's the abandonment of yourself. That man staring back at you from the shattered mirror, the one who no longer knows who he is, wasn't born from her actions. He was born the day you stopped respecting yourself. The day you decided she was worth more than your peace, your purpose, your vital energy. And the only way out of that abyss isn't through more romance, more hope, more blind faith. It's through truth. A truth that burns your eyes if it must, but finally lets you see. Because as long as you remain sedated by the narrative they fed you, you'll keep begging for emotional crumbs, believing it's love. But that's not love, that's dependency. And dependency destroys more souls than rejection ever could. Then comes the day when you can no longer lie to yourself. The day when something inside you breaks so violently that no sweet phrase, no nostalgic memory can hold it together. That's the day you stare the illusion in the eye and realize it wasn't her who destroyed you, it was you. You, for dreaming with someone who was never dreaming the same dream. Schopenhauer didn't hand you a blueprint for hatred, he handed you a mirror, one that not everyone dares to face. Because what it reflects isn't her, it's you, your need to idealize, your desperation to be loved, your chosen blindness. And if you can hold that gaze, without flinching, without justifying, without fleeing, something shifts, something deep, something no one can ever take from you again. That's real freedom. Not the kind you scream to convince yourself you're fine, not the mask you wear to impress others. The kind of freedom born from properly lived pain. The kind that emerges when you finally accept that your worth is not defined by whether or not she chooses you, loves you, or validates you. That your purpose can never be tied to someone else's fluctuating desire. Because you didn't come into this world to orbit her. You came to build your own center, your own kingdom. And if a woman walks beside you on that path, let it be out of mutual respect, shared vision and awareness. Not because you need her to save you from yourself. The difference is everything. When you stop idealizing, you stop begging. You stop shrinking yourself to fit. You stop negotiating with your essence just to be accepted. And finally, you reclaim something you had given away without realizing. Your vital energy, your presence, your clean, undiluted masculinity. Your purpose, free from need. And that transformation doesn't require vengeance. It doesn't require resentment. It requires truth. The kind of truth that tells you you are not here to be loved as a fantasy, but to be respected for who you truly are. And if that doesn't happen, if they don't see you, don't value you, then you must have the courage to walk away. Not from anger, but from dignity. Because you are not a stepping stone. You are not a phase. You are not a resource. You are an end in yourself. A man who walks firmly, even if he walks alone. One who would rather stand in the silence of his truth than remain in the golden prison of an illusion. And that choice, though painful at first, is the line that separates the conscious man from the emotional child who still hopes to be loved like in fairy tales. Illusion doesn't die on its own. It dies when you choose to let it go. When you name it. Understand it, release it. And then your true self emerges. Not the one who chased validation, not the one who gave blindly, but the one who will never again sacrifice his soul for a story written by someone else. Now you know. And with that knowing, you can't go back. You can't keep believing what you've already seen collapse. You can't betray yourself by chasing a fantasy that has already shown you its teeth. Love is not your enemy. Women are not your enemy. The true enemy was the lie you were told and chose to believe, but not anymore, because now you walk with open eyes, a straight spine, and an intact soul, not to hate, but to never again abandon yourself. And that is the true victory.